Okay, guys. Hey, guys, Tiger. Reacting to Donut doing Russian cars. So here we go, guys. And yes, I might play Forza later on. Who knows? So let's see here.
You go to the dealership. The dealer's like, hey, so you know there's a 10-year waiting list. Like, right there.
7 to 10 years.
And you put some money down the box.
Even Reagan said that.
Just before you leave, you ask the dealer, hey, should I pick this car up in the morning or afternoon? It's 10 years away. What does it matter? Like, well, the plumber's coming in the morning. We're used to
Gushka.
Every company wants to capitalize on the newest, fastest, and safest technology in order to appeal to us, consumers. It's what drives innovation, after all. But what happens when that's not the case? When a communist state owns all the companies? Is innovation stifled? Today we're going to talk about some of the most interesting cars to come out of the USSR and what it was like to get your hands on one.
Some of the cars in the USSR are pretty cool, like that Niva.
United Soviet Socialist Republic, or Soviet Union, was a communist state that spanned 8.6 million square miles across northern Asia and Eastern Europe. The USSR was thick. One of the first companies to be nationalized and start production of a purely Soviet vehicle under the USSR's watchful eye was AMO, otherwise known as Automobilnoye Moskovskoye Obshchestvo.
I speak Russian.
We're keeping that in.
I took Russian, guys, for years, but...
Vladimir Lenin, in which he promised the sons and daughters of the revolution that Russia would now step into the motor age. Engineers from the Scientific Automobile and Motor Institute working for AMO debuted the Nami-1 in 1927.
Okay.
The original Soviet passenger car, this rolling monument to the proletariat, was designed to combine the simplicity and low cost of a cycle car with the passenger capacity and comfort of a small car. It was considered an engineering success and did great on undeveloped roads, but ultimately failed because of its high production cost. Only a few thousand of them were manufactured between 1927 and 1931. For the next 20 years, the majority of vehicle production was focused on trucks and other military vehicles out of three plants: the Gorky Automotive Plant, or GAZ, the AMO plant in Moscow, GIL, and the Yaboslavy Motor Plant, or YAMS. Manufacturing of all-wheel drive trucks continued through World War II. All in all, 417,000 heavy trucks were produced. In Soviet Russia, car design grew. Many Soviet car models were basically just communist copies of cars sold in other parts of the world. The car's mechanics would be simplified and the brakes and suspension beefed up to survive harsh Soviet roads.
So like Michigan.
Brands like Fiat, Ford, and Opel would get Soviet makeovers.
But Opel and Ford are American.
Different names. The first Soviet compact car was no exception. The KIM-10 was based off a British Ford model, the Prefect. Scientists from NAMI, the same group that developed the Nami-1, reverse engineered the Prefect and converted the resulting drawings into the metric system so they could be adapted to Soviet.
So yeah, Ford and Opel are both American car companies.
The four-cylinder had a 3-speed transmission and produced 30 horsepower. But surprisingly, the KIM's performance wasn't that much different than its British counterpart, and apparently it was actually pretty good for the time, light years ahead of any other car being built in the USSR. The post-war USSR saw a massive expansion into the automotive sector. Moskvich, meaning native of Moscow, acquired the entire Opel manufacturing plant in Germany after the Nazi regime fell. The factory, located in the city of Rüsselsheim, was a part of the post-war reparations paid out to the USSR by Germany. In 1947, they rolled out the Moskvich 400, modeled after the Opel Kadett. Soviet soldiers captured a few Opels and brought them back to the motherland. They carefully reverse-engineered every component on the car, then built their own version of it in Moscow. The Moskvich 400 had a 1.1-liter inline-four, came in a sedan,
that's not bad,
and even a wood-paneled station wagon when you're just hanging out with a comrade. Even though the 23-horsepower engine had a 0 to 60 time of 55 seconds, the Moskvich 400 was considered to be the best Soviet car of the time, and by 1952, 100,000 had been produced. The USSR began exporting vehicles in the 1950s, and production skyrocketed.
You need to get off my property.
The space dog who was cooked to death in space after a catastrophic pod failure. R.I.P. to a real one. By the late 50s, 600
it was accidental.
cars were being manufactured annually, and 43 different models were being exported to Western Europe. You may know VAZ by their export name, Lada. Back in the 70s, Lada cars were popular because they were reliable, cheap, and easy to fix. The 2101 was designed with help from Fiat and was a more rugged version of the Fiat 124 sedan, which had won 1967's European Car of the Year. They added big drum brakes and raised the suspension to handle the 4 roads, a heavier steel body, and a new motor with an overhead cam. This thing was meant to withstand anything. Engineers took into mind the scarcity of auto repair shops when designing the car, so everything was very basic and super easy to fix, even the interior.
Oh, wow.
Nothing in it.
Oh, shit, whoa.
Hey, it's me, your skin.
That's why the antenna's not working properly. When I go camping, Tyler, would you take this with you? When I go camping, yeah. When I go camping, I take TV with me all the time. I go, what if you actually could do it, Tyler? In a best roof antenna on your TV. What if you had a camp? But you guys had a little TV in there.
It might have been easy to scoop up a Soviet-made car in other parts of Europe. The process for obtaining one in the Soviet Union was a little bit lengthier. During the Cold War, the average car wait in the USSR was 7 to 10 years. Much of this had to do with the scarcity of materials. The Soviet Union prioritized manufacturing of military vehicles over civilian cars. So once all their 57,670 tanks were built, they didn't have much material left over to build cars. Because of this, only 4.5% of people had a car. If you compare that to the U.S. during that same era, that
Almost
number's
half.
pretty low. During this time in the USSR, you couldn't just go to a dealership and buy a car. It all went through your place of work. Trade unions, under jurisdiction of the state, decided how many cars each company got. Then the company decided which workers got a car. But companies would only get a limited amount of cars each year. Real talk, like 4 or 5 cars.
Oh, that would be 3 or 4.
Workers. So if you wanted a car, which most people did, you had to jump through a lot of hoops to get your burly, hard-working hands on one. First, you'd submit a written request to your superiors stating why you wanted one. Then you'd wait around for a year while your background check was processed. Everything from your productivity at work to your attendance at state-sponsored social functions, can I say communist parties, were taken into account by your superiors. So basically, if you were a member of the Communist Party and an outstanding worker with a range of skills, your chances of getting a car were better than just your average worker. Can you imagine if you were at your company's Christmas party and you've been waiting like 7 years for a car, and then they call Derek from shipping's name and you're like, what? I've been waiting for 7 years. And they're like, yeah, but Derek stays late. But there was a better option. If you knew the right people, say government officials or trade union leaders, they might be able to get you your car soon. Some officials were easily bribed, but it usually meant tacking on an extra 20% to the car's value. Another car designed to be easy to maintain was the Trabant 6.
Oh, those things were used.
Manufactured from 1963 to 1990, they made over 2.8
2 strokes.
million of these blocky little
So like a
guys.
couple of them in the US.
The 601 was East Germany's people's vehicle, a reaction to the VW Beetle, and came in 5 different trim levels, including a rally car and the Hycomat, designed for people who couldn't use their left leg. Kind of weird. If you had a little bit more money to spend, you could get a Volga M21. This executive class.
Oh, that car you couldn't get at all. No one could get a Volga.
You had to be well connected, a KGB agent, or Yuri Gagarin to drive it. Seriously, this is the car that cosmonaut and first man in space, Yuri Gagarin, drove. Designer Lev Arameo was inspired by American cars like the Chevy Bel Air and Ford Mainline, which is pretty apparent. It was one of many Soviet copycat cars that was borrowed from Western car design.
At least the Soviet cars were more safer.
And radio, which for the Soviet Union was basically the Hilton. You can sleep in your car because your house doesn't have any of those things. The base model had a 2.3-liter inline-4.
At least the Soviet Union copied their cars properly. China and North Korea screwed up that bad.
5.5-liter V8, which had 160 horses and can reach 110 miles an hour.
They're trying to go into some trucks these days.
One car you didn't have to be rich or connected to afford was the SNZ microcar, but you did have to be disabled to drive it, though. These cars were distributed for free or at a massive discount to disabled people through the USSR Social Welfare Program. Nicknamed the motor wheelchair, the SMZ had a single-cylinder engine and had to be returned to the government after 5 years. Frankly,
So technically I could have one. I'm disabled, so I can have one.
Daily drive this thing for sure. All these cars I've talked about might make you think that the communists only cared about practicality and longevity. And you're right for the most part. But there's always an exception that proves the rule. And this one is called the Melkus RS-1000. Built in East Germany from 1969 to 79, the RS-1000 was one of the Soviets' only sports cars.
Cute.
They had a lightweight fiberglass body.
Going doors.
The Melkus got its power from a very
That means the sport cars have going doors.
engine making 103 horsepower. That's not a lot, but the car was super light. Think of it as a communist...
Yeah, I'll do the look of the century real quick. No, do something else. I'm gonna do something else right now.
The Maltese brand made a comeback in the late 2000s with their RS 2000 follow-up, but unfortunately nobody bought one. So, are cars produced in communist societies worse than cars produced in capitalist ones? Well, I'd say yeah, to a certain point. Innovation was definitely stifled under communist governments, and many cars that were produced were just copies of other cars from other places. But there were some really cool ones like the Volga or the RS 1000. The only problem was that in a society seemingly devoid of classes, only a certain higher ranking class had access to these cars, which kind of defeats the point of communism. We look at weird stuff in car history every week here on Wheelhouse.
Top Gear.
There, we talked about Ford earlier. So
Top Gear Russia. Top Gear Russia. Well, so a while back I did a video that didn't turn out right. Well, I'm gonna redo the videos over again. There's a video I did last year. Did off and on for a year. It didn't turn out. It was planned. I'm gonna redo it over again. All the state highways. That videos didn't really do well. I know I need to bite the bullet and redo every single state highway. So, 50 states, a lot of state roads, and this time I'm going to redo it over again from scratch. So, let's write down all 50 states and work our way up. So, I'll be back in a little bit to start working on this. Or maybe I'll don't. Wait, I'll use the GoPros and do it. Well, eventually, as long as it's done, it doesn't really matter, does it? So, yeah, I'm going to get me a different camera out and do it.